So once again, thank you for being here. I want to welcome you. Oh, my thing is not advancing. There it goes. I want to welcome you to our presentation about gifted and talented education. By the end of this presentation, you should be able to answer these questions that are listed here on the screen in green. You should know about how students are identified for gifted and talented education services. You should know how you as a parent or community member can fit into the identification process for GATE services. And you should know a little bit about the kinds of services that we provide here in SAISD for students. On this slide, you will see Texas's definition of gifted and talented or gifted and talented student. Here in Texas, we're pretty lucky because we actually have laws and regulations that govern the identification of gifted and talented students and also the services that we provide to students. That's not the case in all states. In some states, gifted services are not a part of the educational program for students, but we here in Texas are lucky in that respect. As you can see, the definition leaves the door open for us to think about things like performance and potential. So what this means is that sometimes you might have a student who is not performing in the classroom, who might not be doing well in terms of grades, but demonstrates the potential for performing at a high level, and they can be identified for gifted services as well. You'll also notice that in Texas, we're able to identify students in a wide variety of areas, including things like creativity, the arts, leadership, all kinds of areas. Currently, San Antonio Independent School District GATE services focus primarily on intellectual and academic fields, which means like your core content areas like high abilities in math, science, social studies, or the language arts. However, I'm excited to tell you that we're working on a pilot program right now that identifies students in leadership and in the visual arts. And we're hoping to actually increase those services over time. Now on this slide, you might be asking yourselves, why should we provide educational services to meet the needs of students who might be under-challenged in the classroom? Is it really important to make sure that all students are getting academic challenge in their classroom? And I would say to you, undoubtedly, the answer is yes, because providing students who come to us already knowing what's going on in a classroom, or maybe who can learn at a really rapid pace, is an important part of every classroom. We shouldn't just provide services for these students because Texas tells us it's what's right. We should do it because it's actually best educational practices for those kids. We should think about these GATE services as a way to make sure that every child is getting challenge and academic challenge in their classroom. And as you can see from this slide, there can be some real consequences to students being under challenged in the classroom. So what might happen if everything is easy for a student every day in the classroom? They could end up being disengaged, meaning they check out of being interested in school. They don't want to be part of the classroom because they're bored. It could also display some challenging behavior. Sometimes students who are under challenged end up bothering other students or end up engaging in some activities to that keep their interest going, which can sometimes be seen by the teacher as a challenging kind of behavior. Also, students might end up, if they don't have to work hard to learn new things, they might start to think that all learning should be easy, that there shouldn't be any challenge to the idea of school. And this could lead them to become intellectually lazy, meaning they don't want to take on academic challenges. They don't want to work hard in order to achieve academic goals because they're not used to it. It can also lead to fear of failure. So when the student finally does get challenged, whether that's in high school, whether that's in college, whether that's in graduate school, they might be really afraid of the idea of failure, and they might reject doing some kind of academic challenge or academic work that would be really good for them, but they don't want to do it because they're afraid that they might fail. And finally, sometimes if students are under challenged in the classroom, students and families can seek challenge elsewhere, meaning that they either take on enrichment activities after school, or perhaps they might even choose to leave a classroom or leave a campus if they don't feel like their needs are being met. So we want to make sure that we provide challenging and rigorous academic curriculum for our students here in San Antonio ISD. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, what does a student who qualifies for gifted services look like? And so on this slide, we're going to investigate some common traits or characteristics of students who may qualify for GATE services. I'm going to start by talking about cognitive characteristics. These are the intellectual or academic or what people think of as traditionally gifted qualities. Things like students who can solve problems very easily. Might be a student who is a high level reader and started reading at a very young age. Someone who has a really big vocabulary, uses a lot of big words when talking. Or also, they might be very curious, asking lots of questions, wanting to know about how the world works all around them, noticing things that other students don't notice, and asking about them. And finally, I want to point out the idea of critical thinking. So these are students who might analyze concepts really deeply. They might pick apart systems. They might ask a lot of intricate, detail oriented kinds of questions to try to figure out how things work. Students can also display creative characteristics. So this might be a student who's very inventive. It might be a student who has a really rich fantasy life. Maybe they have imaginary friends, or they like to pretend to be things a lot of the time. You also might see a student who is really intuitive. They get an answer to a problem, but they just can't tell you how they got that answer, even though it's the right answer. We also have affective characteristics. Affective characteristics talk about the social emotional capacity of students. And sometimes these students who qualify for GATE services have really deep emotions or really intense feelings. They might have really high expectations of themselves. They know what they think perfect looks like and they want to achieve it. So they may get frustrated when they don't. They also can be the kinds of kids that have high levels of moral judgment. These are your little judges and lawyers who look at a situation. They know what the rules are. They want to follow the rules, and they want everyone else to follow the rules as well. And they'll tell you about it if it's not happening. And finally, there can be some behavioral characteristics to students who might qualify for GATE services. These might be the kinds of students who are really focused in on the things that they're passionate about. They're really interested in learning about frogs, and they learn everything there is to know about frogs, every kind of frog, every place a frog lives, all of the different environments, that kind of thing. They're also probably, many of them are constantly questioning. They're asking you why. Why is it this way? And then when you give an answer, they ask you why again. And they continue to ask these questions over and over again. And finally, sometimes these GT kiddos can be really big talkers. They like to talk to people. They like to talk about their interests. They like to ask questions and just investigate all kinds of things. And so I went through that slide just a chunk at a time because I wanted you to have a chance to look at each one of the categories. But this is kind of an overall picture of common traits of students who might qualify for gifted services. And I say it in this way, like traits of students who may qualify for GATE services, because not all GT students will show all of these characteristics. This isn't a full checklist. It's not that if your child exhibits every single one of these that means they'll qualify for GT. This is just a list of characteristics that are pretty common among students who participate in gifted programs. So you might be asking yourself at this point, what do I do if I think that my child or student might need gifted services? And on this slide, you can see a flyer that talks about our referral process for gifted and talented. Here in SAISD and actually in all of the districts in Texas, becoming a part of gifted services or gaining access to gifted services requires going through a referral process and an assessment process. And so here in SAISD, if you'll see in step one, parents or teachers or community members or even the student themselves observes that they think that they have a need for gifted and talented services. And then any one of those people, in fact, anyone really, can refer a student for GT services. You'll see this year, in order to ensure that testing happens during this school year, we're asking that referrals be submitted by October 30th. And we'll be testing students between October 26th and December 18th for the rest of the second semester, pretty much. And what happens is students take, once the referral is submitted, students take an assessment, and then we take a look at that assessment data in conjunction with some other assessment data that we collect through the classroom. A teacher checklist, we'll ask the parents to fill out a checklist. We'll look at students' academics scores, things like MAP and STAR and grades and all of those things. And a committee meets together and looks at each student and according to the data makes a decision on whether they think that gifted services are something that this student needs. And I want to take a second just to walk you through the referral process using this form. So let's see if all the links work and all the technology works. So when you get this presentation, if you click on this entire flyer here, it will take you to an actual copy of the flyer, a PDF version of the flyer. And once you get there, take a little bit of time to load here, you'll see this link right here in the red and yellow, and you'll also see a QR code as well. You'll also see that this flyer is in Spanish as well, so you can access it in either English or Spanish. And the links take you all to the same place. And if you click on here, it will take you to a Google form where you can fill out a referral form saying, I believe that my child needs to be assessed for gifted and talented services. And this form is also in both English and Spanish. And you'll work your way through the form and answer the questions. And your referral will go straight into our online referral database. So that's something new for us this year in that our referral process is entirely online. And now you'll see here a little slide about something called universal screening. So one way students can qualify for GT services is through the referral process. A teacher, a parent, themselves, a community member notices that they believe this child is operating at an advanced level compared to their peers, and they make a referral. Another way that students can access gifted and talented services is through something called universal screening. Gifted programs are often called out for a lack of equity or students not, the makeup of the gifted program not being the same as the makeup of the school district. And universal screening is considered a really key component in increasing representation in gifted programs. It allows all students in certain grade levels to have this opportunity to demonstrate their potential for gifted services. And in SAISD, we work with first and fifth grade students, and they all have the opportunity to participate in taking an assessment for possible eligibility for gifted and talented services, unless their parent opts them out of that screening process. So that can be done at the campus. The testing all takes place at the campus, and the opting out can be done through the campus as well, or also on this screen. You'll see a little link here in this yellow cloud that would allow a first or fifth grade parent to let the school and the district know that they did not want them to participate in gifted screening. So now that we've talked about a little bit about how students get referred and assessed and identified for gifted services, I want to talk to you a little bit about the services that we actually provide. And this document, I know it looks big and has a lot of words and details and pieces and parts. But on this page, I want to point out a couple of things to you, and then we're going to kind of dissect this diagram section by section to talk about the different services that are provided here. So the first thing you need to know is that the heart of gifted services happen in the regular classroom, where students are placed with a teacher who is GT trained to work with GT students and can provide differentiation or higher level academic challenges right in the regular classroom setting. We also, at the secondary level, we have advanced level courses that students can enroll in, something like advanced placement, dual credit, international baccalaureate. We have a number of different things. And finally, a second piece of gifted and talented services is the enrichment option that all of the GT specialists provide in addition to what's happening in the regular classroom. We're going to dissect the diagram a little bit more, and we'll talk about those services in a little more detail, just a couple of slides. The other thing you need to be aware of on this big giant slide is that right now, in these current conditions, the vast majority of our enrichment opportunities and the services that we're providing through the GATE department are happening virtually through online courses, through Zoom meetings, in virtual kinds of ways. As we move to bring more students back to campus, we'll reevaluate how we deliver our services to include some possibly some pieces that are happening in person as well. Now let's take a little deeper look into some of the other layers of this diagram. So first, we're going to start with middle school. In the 6th through 8th grade, our GT program really focuses on college, career, and military readiness, but from the aspect of preparing the middle school student for what comes next in high school. So thinking about who they are as a person, their identity, thinking about goals. You'll see on the things that I highlighted on this slide that goals play an important part in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. So we're talking to students about the future, what comes next, what plan do you have for your future, and how can we help you get from where you are today to that future goal. In 7th grade, we focus a little more heavily on assessments. What are some of the assessments that students have to take in order to be ready for college, career, and military? And in 8th grade, we're talking a little bit more about high school options, all of the different magnet programs and specialty high schools here in San Antonio ISD. We want to make sure students have an understanding of all of their different options so that they can pick the things that work best for their goals for the future. In high school, oh, and I forgot to mention, over here on the left, you'll see a name. It says Cynthia Solano with an email address. That is our specialist who is in charge of all of our middle school programming. So she's the person that you would want to contact if you have a question about traditional middle schools and the services that are provided there. Then for high school, we have a specialist whose name is Miranda Coleman, and she works with all of our high schools on 9th through 12th grade programming. And she offers, again, these are enrichment courses that they're not for a grade. They don't count towards a child's GPA, but they are courses or seminars that students can come to learn about some different aspects of giftedness and planning for the future and goal setting and how to be college, career, and military ready by the time you get to 12th grade. And so in ninth through 12th grade, students are also focusing on goals, setting goals for the future. You'll see that pretty heavily mentioned in this slide. And they're also thinking about themselves again as learners. What are they good at? What careers would be good for them? What would be good fits in terms of colleges and those kinds of things? Students will set post-secondary goals. They'll learn about how to communicate and advocate for themselves around things like grades. How do I talk to a teacher if I need to talk to them about a grade? How do I know what my GPA is? How do I know what my class rank is? What do I need to do to prepare myself to be ready to make that awesome college application in the 12th grade? Now we're going to move down to elementary school. And in elementary school, we're doing something a little bit unique in that we developed 4 different online enrichment courses. You'll see them outlined here around different topics of interest. And then students in the 1st through 5th grade who are part of GT services were able to enroll and choose one of these courses to participate in. And again, the course is happening online. For the vast majority of it is asynchronous work, but students are having times to check in with gifted and talented specialists around the work that they're doing. And some of the skills that are really important and as they pursue these projects are students will be learning about research skills. They'll be learning how to pick something of interest and do a project on it. And the end goal is to complete a project by the end of the year that can be displayed at our GT showcase. We have a showcase every year of the projects that students have worked on. And here you can see the instructors that are associated with each of the courses. And so the specialists who are listed under each column of the course are the people who will be your main contacts for that course. If your student is enrolled in the course, that would be the person you would go to ask for information about it. Finally, in addition to teaching these enrichment courses, all of my specialists, and right now we're talking about elementary and academy specialists, they all have schools or campuses that are assigned to them, and they provide support to these campuses. They assist with referrals and testing. They're available to help teachers in planning differentiated assignments. They can assist parents in answering any questions about gifted and talented services, gifted and talented testing. And please don't hesitate to contact these specialists if you have any questions about gifted services at your campuses. You'll see in this diagram, I know it's also a little bit busy, but I wanted to get everybody on one slide. So you'll see on the left-hand column is the name of the specialist, and directly to the right of them are the campuses that they are in charge of. And there's 2 columns of that. So James is in the first column, and he serves Cotton, Marhill, Rogers, and YMLA. And Vanessa is in the next column, and she serves Cameron, Carroll, Gates, Ogden, Stewart's, and Storm. Before, I know at the beginning of this presentation, I talked to you a little bit, or I gave you a little bit of a teaser about the fact that we are starting to delve into the areas of visual arts and leadership. And so we do have a pilot program that's happening at Burbank, Jefferson, Harris, Woodlawn Academy, and Briscoe right now, where we are identifying students with gifts and talents in the visual arts and also in leadership, and providing services to those students through a grant that we received. And this slide right here gives you the names of the specialists who work in each of those fields. In leadership, we have Carlin Freiberger and Randy Rasco. And in visual arts, we have Marjorie Lindsay and Brittany Smith Muchagumba. And also, this is another referral slide because at the same time as we're referring students for academic gifted programs, which was the first referral process that we talked about, we're also accepting referrals at these 5 campuses only for visual arts and leadership services. And this flyer can take you to their referral process. And you would go through the same process. You can click on the flyer itself, and then there will be a link right here. Once you get to the full flyer, that will take you to the actual referral form for visual arts and leadership gifted programs. And that is really a summary of both our referral and identification services and processes, and a high level overview of the services that we provide on campus. So now it's your turn. I'm wondering if there's anyone out there who has any questions they want to ask. And if you don't want to ask here, you can also see on this slide that we have a district email address, giftedandtalented@saisd.net. You can use the slide that we looked at before, this slide, to find someone directly at the campuses where your students are if you want to ask questions there. And you can also, the link that says Gate Specialist list and contact information will take you to our district website, and it will give you a list also of GT specialists and the campuses that they're at and how to reach them via email. And finally, you can follow us on Facebook or Twitter, and you'll see those links right up here in the corner, or those hashtags, or I forget what they're called, tag. I'm not a big Twitter person. And so, but you can use those names to get to us at Facebook and Twitter.